This is the gentlelady from Missouri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Louis and I rise to offer an amendment to H.R. 1, the For the People Act, which would restore the right to vote to our community members serving sentences for felony convictions. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to Congressman Jones for this partnership. America does not love all of its people, and we see that. Right now, more than 5 million people are legally barred from participating in our elections as a result of criminal laws. That is 1 in 44 Americans, 500,000 Latinx Americans, 1.2 million women, and 1 in 6 Black folks. This cannot continue. Disenfranchising our own citizens, it is not justice. Let's see. Madam Chair, I would like to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Chairwoman Lofgren.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. I would just like to note that the underlying bill provides that once individuals are re-enfranchised, they may vote. And H.R. 1 also ends the practice of so-called prison gerrymandering, where persons who are incarcerated are counted where they're incarcerated, not in their home districts, even though they cannot vote there. Now, I know different people have different viewpoints on this amendment. The committee, Democrats have no official position, but speaking just personally, I feel there's merit to this amendment. If you're going to count the individuals for redistricting purposes in their prisons, then I think they have to be allowed to vote there, or else that entire scheme is completely wrong. Further, it occurs to me that those who oppose it think that denying a vote would somehow be a deterrent to criminal conduct. In fact, empowering people to be full citizens encourages rehabilitation. I thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Gentlelady, does the gentlelady reserve?
I reserve the balance.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
For
what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
I rise in opposition to the amendment.
Gentleman's recognized.
I would like to yield 1.5 minutes to my colleague and good friend, Mr. Tiffany from Wisconsin.
Gentleman's recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this amendment, but I want to talk about all the there isn't enough time to talk about all the crazy things in this bill, so I'm going to focus on the one provision I think that takes the cake and something that should have been put in this bill. The bill before us today, which I'm calling the Politician Enrichment Act, will force American taxpayers to fund partisan political ads. You heard that right, Mr. and Mrs. America. All those negative, mudslinging campaign ads you see on TV every election cycle, the ones you can't stand, well, now you have to pay for them too. In fact, you get to chip in $6 of your money for every $1 the politicians raise. How's that for the swamp taking care of its own? But wait, there's more. This new taxpayer-funded gravy train will expand a loophole in campaign finance law that is already big enough to drive a fully loaded Brinks truck through. Madam Speaker, thanks to a generous carve-out in federal law, members of Congress are able to funnel campaign contributions into their personal bank accounts by simply hiring their spouses as campaign consultants. In fact, one high-profile member of the body, this body, exploited this loophole to the tune of $2.8 million in the last election cycle. You think it's bad now, Joe and Jane taxpayer? Just wait until you see how bad it gets when you're paying for it. Madam Speaker, I filed an amendment with the Rules Committee to close this loophole, one based on, may I have 15 more seconds, please?
I yield 15 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for 15 seconds.
One based on a bipartisan proposal introduced by Mr. Schiff and supported by Mr. Hoyer, Mr. Clyburn, and Speaker Pelosi in the 110th Congress. But the Rules Committee chose not to allow us to vote on that amendment today. I wonder why. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Missouri.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute and 30 seconds to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Jones.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute and 30 seconds.
I thank the gentlelady from St. Louis for her leadership. Madam Speaker, I rise to vindicate the right to vote as precisely that, a constitutional right, not a privilege, a right. It is a travesty that our nation's laws do not fully protect the right to vote. And the reason, of course, is white supremacy. 150 years ago, during Reconstruction, we tried to build a multiracial democracy in this country. And for the first time, black people won seats in this very chamber. But white supremacists were not having it. So like today's Republican Party, they devised ways to deny black people the right to vote. Thanks to the 15th Amendment, they could not expressly prohibit black people from voting, so they barred prisoners from voting. Then they invented excuses to put black people in those prisons. It took 70 years for a black candidate to win a seat in this Congress from the South again. These Jim Crow laws remain on the books. They are why over 5 million incarcerated people are barred from voting. These people look like me. They are parents, they are children. They fall in love, they make mistakes just like we do. They are citizens of the United States of America, just like we are, and they deserve the right to vote. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
I would like to yield 2 minutes to my colleague and good friend, Mr. Murphy from North Carolina.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in ardent opposition to H.R. 1, the alleged For the People Act. But before I do that, I just want to speak to the recent amendment submitted that would allow criminals, convicted felons in this country to vote. I've traveled around the world. I don't know any country in this world that allows criminals, convicted felons to vote. That is not keeping them from committing their crime. It's called punishment for their crime. And it's unconscionable to me that we're actually even debating some of these things that we debate on the floor now. The last election showed the Democrats' true goals for reform, a way to permanently federalize the state's elections away from Republicans. If someone would read the Constitution, it's a beautiful document. It talks about states making their own election law. This bill, if anything, should be referred to as the For the Politicians Act. Let's just look at the process before I lambast the policy. 183 amendments were submitted, yet only 56 were made in order. Of those 56, only 8 were allowed by Republican members. And thanks to the McGovern rule, Democrats are continually able to submit bills on the floor without a committee markup. It's called the democratic process, without a markup or a hearing. Policy-wise, things look just even worse. This massive bill provides taxpayer money to finance incumbents' campaigns. It curbs free speech, significantly increases federal bureaucracy and red tape, and creates the one-size-fits-all for the federal election system. Our founders purposely decentralized our election process to give states the authority to conduct smooth and open election day, get the federal government out of state and local affairs. Not every precinct is equal or open to the same composition. Eastern North Carolina is not the same, thank God, as California, Portland, Oregon, or Manhattan. Furthermore, many of these changes were made without input of state and local leaders who have the best on-the-ground knowledge. May I allow for 30 more seconds?
An additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman
Several
is recognized for 3
organizations
seconds.
oppose this bill, but not for many reasons. I urge my colleagues on both sides to oppose H.R. 1 and support the Republican alternative, the Save Democracy Act. This is about our elections. This is what makes the United States different from everywhere. If we allow fraud in our electoral process, this nation is lost. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Missouri.
Speaker, could you tell me how much time I have left, please?
Gentlelady has 1 3/4 minutes remaining. Gentleman from Wisconsin has 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And let me just say, currently Vermont, Maine, District of Columbia, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico allow for individuals to vote who are incarcerated, just to be clear. Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Michigan. Actually, I yield 30 seconds to the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Tlaib.
Please recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. I rise because voting is a right that must be extended to all people. And yes, that includes currently and formerly incarcerated individuals. In a country that has yet to fully make amends or pay restitution for its racist past, we must recognize that taking away the right to vote as punishment for a crime is directly tied to a racist mass incarceration system that continues to wreak havoc on Black and brown communities. The stripping of the right to vote of incarcerated people, especially Black folks, is directly connected to the racist past of our country, from slavery and Jim Crow laws to mass incarceration. It was done with intent to disenfranchise them for the most sacred right to choose the
Gentlelady's
people
time's
and policies
expired.
that govern. And Madam Chair, people need to look up. There are countries that allow formerly incarcerated people
Gentlelady's
to
time's
vote.
expired. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Missouri.
Right. Madam Speaker, I yield 30 minutes to the gentleman
30
from New York, Mr. Bowman.
Gentleman's recognized for
Seconds.
30 seconds.
Seconds. Give him 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Our friends, our neighbors, and our family members who are entangled in this injustice system did not lose their citizenship, so they should not lose their right to vote. These are people from our communities, still connected strongly to our families, our schools, and our workplaces. As a result, they should not lose their right to vote. Their right to vote must be restored because these are individuals, people, not criminals, who can still think critically and creatively and contribute to our democracy. Our democracy will remain broken and sick and unhealthy
The gentleman's time has
until
expired.
we heal by restoring the right to vote to our incarcerated individuals. Thank you. I yield back.
It's expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank my colleagues, Rep. Sarbanes and Lofgren, for their leadership on this bill. And just to put it out there as a reminder, we're talking about actual people. We're talking about humanity. We're talking about access. We're talking about the right to vote. These are people. These are people. I urge a yes vote, and I yield the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Pursuant to House Resolution 179, the previous question is ordered on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Missouri. The question is on the amendment. Those in favor, say aye. Yes. Those opposed, say no. In the opinion of the chair,
I ask for a roll call vote.
in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The gentlelady from Georgia.
Madam Speaker, I ask for a roll call vote.
Pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on amendments on Block 1, printed in Part B of House Report 117-9, offered by the gentlewoman from California, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will redesignate the amendments en bloc. The question is on the amendments.
Consisting of amendments numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 20, and 21, printed in Part B of House Report number 117-9, offered by Ms. Lofgren of California.
The question is on the amendments en bloc offered by the gentlewoman from California. Members will record their vote by electronic device.